Hey, it's Em, here to talk about a book I DNF'd, a book I just finished reading, and the movie we watched last night. So, let's get started. The book I DNF'd, I only got 30 pages into. I picked it up at the library on a whim. It was on a display shelf when you walked in. One of those librarian recommends kind of things. It was The Library of the Dead by T.L. someone. I will put it on the screen. This is the story, the premise on the flap sounded really interesting. It's about a girl who kind of is an exorcist or communes with the dead, or, gets hired basically to deal with spirits bothering people in their homes or wherever. It's how she makes her money. I guess her grandmother was the person who gets hired, but her grandmother is ill, so she goes to the jobs instead, often surprising the people when she shows up, and she's only 14. But in any case, this is all set in Edinburgh, and for me, it was tonally just not my thing. It's told from the girl's point of view, and she's I don't know, like she's poor. She speaks in a vernacular that made me think more like American, but then every now and then there would be a word like "we" or "bloody" thrown in, and it didn't gel for me. I mean, I don't. The author has lived most of his adult life in Edinburgh, according to about the author. So maybe that's typical of a certain strata of Scottish people. I have no idea, but just tonally it was a little bit too discordant, and I think I couldn't like the main character. 30 pages in, we're all in her head. She's not very likable, and I'm not down with killing animals. Yes, I know that they're poor, and she's thinking they can eat the squirrel she kills for dinner or whatever. But I don't know. I didn't care for it, and the killer for me was at that last page. She meets a school friend, so she's dropped out of school, but she runs into a friend who she used to go to school with, and it's kind of a, hey, long time no see, how come you never text me or whatever. And he has, excuses. And then she says something like, whatever, eat my vag. And I was like, nah, I'm not, I don't know. I have a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'm just like, I mean, again, it was probably very much in character for her. It may be very typical of the way they speak in Edinburgh. I don't know, but it just didn't work for me tonally and the character. And even though I thought the premise was really interesting, I don't know. It didn't work for me, so I ended up putting it down after 30 pages. And, oh well. No harm, no foul. That's what I love about picking up books at the library. The book I did pick up after that and read was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This obviously was pretty popular, I think, last year when it came out, and I finally got around to reading it, and we're gonna talk about it, but just a little bit of a warning, because we're gonna discuss some eating disorder things. And if that's a problem for you, then look in the description and find the next part of this, move on to theater camp, because if eating disorders are problematic for you, you probably don't want to be here for this book or this discussion. So Jeanette McCurdy, child actor, pushed into it by her mother, and I identified with this material a lot, not because I was a child actor, but because my mother had similar manipulative tendencies, and because even though my eating disorder was not like encouraged by my mother directly, I did go through an eating disorder time in high school and college. That is reflected a little bit in Lucas in my book, The Switchgrass Crown. But yeah, so this book I really enjoyed reading it, mostly because I could identify with the material. I understood where the author was coming from. I've worked in Hollywood too, so that helped me understand some of the pressures going on. I think for me, this book hit a sweet spot. I read some reviews afterwards where people were like, I didn't like the way this was written. It didn't make sense to me, like some of her choices. And it might have just been that, like, if you haven't lived some of this in some way, it won't make sense to you, or it just won't strike you quite as hard. It did, unfortunately, trigger some of my disordered eating habits. McCurdy talks about, not eating or purging, and I was never bulimic because I hate to vomit. Like, I can't stand the feeling or the taste of it, but starving myself was pretty common. And like, I'm reading this book and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've been eating too much. I need to stop eating, it did definitely kind of do that to me. Obviously, the author's intent is not to have that happen, and certainly the author is, throughout the book, encouraging like healthy eating and seeking help at the end of the book. The end of the book is a lot about the eating disorder too, like up until the point where her mother does pass away from cancer. There is other stuff going on, but then once her mother passes away, it's kind of dealing with the eating disorder that lingers after her mother's passing. And so I felt like the book slowed down a little bit at that point for me. Like, I was really reading through it, and then we hit kind of the whole dealing with weird boyfriends and eating disorder stuff, and less of the Hollywood auditioning stuff. And it didn't, I was still really well paced, really interesting, but not as much so as before. And I apologize for the cat. He hates any kind of closed door, but I guarantee if I let him in right now, he'll just want out again in a minute. Anyway, I gave the book like a 4.5, 4.6, somewhere in there, rounded to 5 stars on Goodreads. I did really enjoy it. I don't know if enjoy is the right word. You kind of understand the relief she must feel on some level once her mother is no longer there to control her life, but also that weird sudden freedom of, now what do? I have no one to tell me what to do or guide me, or, and I definitely could understand that sense of, confusion, lack of identity, when your whole identity's been wrapped up in this other person who's been telling you who you are, or at least who they want you to be, and you're trying very hard to be that person, and then suddenly it was a good read, and it moved pretty quickly. The chapters are fairly short. Some of them are only like a page. So I think there's like 90 something chapters, and it's only 304 pages or something like that. So it is a relatively brisk read, but it is a little bit fraught if you've dealt with manipulative parents, abuse of any kind, or disordered eating. You might be triggered a little bit. Just a little bit of a warning there. And finally, Moving on, let's see. We watched Theater Camp, which just came to streaming. It was, I think, at Sundance or one of these film festivals, and then kind of got squashed in the Barbenheimer steamroller. So I don't know if it even ever went really very wide, because it is kind of a little indie movie starring Ben Platt and Noah. I can't remember his name. Anyway, it's cute. It is, if you've liked things like Waiting for Guffman and, the Christopher Guest mockumentary kinds of films, then this fits in nicely with those. I wouldn't say it's as laugh out loud funny as those, because this one is not as over the top. It's a little more subtle. It's definitely for people who have experienced theater in some way, whether at camp, school. I have done theater and I've taught Shakespeare, and now I have a child who is involved in theater. So I definitely you get, you get it, right? The thing about it is, it's only an hour and a half long. You have a lot of characters and you don't get to know any of them particularly well. So I had a hard time being invested in the characters and the story, which overall is that a summer theater camp is being threatened by a neighboring camp that wants to buy their land. The woman who runs the theater camp is in a coma, and her kind of doltish adult son is attempting to run the camp. And in the meantime, we've got a camp instructor who lied on her resume and actually knows nothing about it, teaching at a theater camp or anything like that. And some old hand theater instructors who have done this year over year, it seems like. And then of course all of the theater students, and we kind of get a sense of some of them, but again, it's such a quick short movie. It's not super in-depth. The plot is pretty much what you see is what you get. Troy, the son who's running the camp, is attempting to either make a deal or not. He's kind of trying to make a deal with the other camp because there's money in it, but at the same time he starts to love the camp and maybe wants to save it and is attempting to do that. There's some really great actual performances. When we do actually see the students perform, there are some impressive performances scattered throughout, but I didn't quite get the whole heart feeling, just because I couldn't really get a sense of any of these characters that are just kind of all over the place. It almost feels like it should be a television series. It needs more room to breathe than the hour and a half that it's given with all these characters and stuff going on. It needed a little bit more focus or a little more time, one or the other. It was still really cute, and I do recommend it, particularly again if you have any kind of background in theater or with any familiarity with the milieu, then I think you would get a kick out of it. But a lot of the students at the camp, the campers, a lot of them are a little bit distilled into stereotypes. You're like, oh, it's that kind of theater kid, which there's some truth in that. Obviously, cliches are born from some kind of truth, but aside from the stereotypes, you again don't get a whole lot of depth about any of the characters involved, which is a shame because it seems like it could have been maybe just a little more fun. There could have been a little bit more humor involved. There are some moments where I did laugh out loud, but in any case, overall, yes, it is worth a watch. Again, especially if you do enjoy things like the Christopher Guest mockumentaries, which this is something similar, but not quite as like expansive maybe as those. And that's it. That is all I had to talk about today. And I've got a stack of books, and I'm going back to the library today, so we'll see what I read next. I'm still looking for a rom-com to finish out my bingo board for the year, but I've got a manga coming that I pre-ordered from Amazon. I've got that coming next week, so that'll take me like a day. I'm on track with my reading for the year, my Goodreads challenge, 40 books for the year, and I'm at 29. It'll be 30 when I read the manga, so right on schedule with that. And yeah, I just need that rom-com for my bingo board. And that's it. Until next time, take care.